that fact. I call the honourable member for Melbourne.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. People have twigged that this government and its budget takes the axe to the young, the old and the sick and the poor and lets Gina Rinehart and her like off the hook. And today the government is moving to deliver on its promise to its big business and fossil fuel backers. It is easy to take the axe to people who can't defend themselves. It takes courage to stand up to the wealthy and the powerful, but a coward takes the axe to the people who cannot defend themselves. And that's what this Prime Minister and this government has done. And people are increasingly realising it. And people know that today the government is coming in here and saying, at the same time as we want people under 30 to spend 6 months of every year without any income at all, at the same time as we want people who have put in and worked all their lives to now work for an extra 3 years and work until you drop and you won't have the same kind of pension to rely on that you thought you might have before. And at the same time as the government is coming in here and saying, we are going to ask those who can least afford it to now pay to go to the doctor, even if it means that they might not go. That's all right, we don't mind deterring them because we want them to pay. At the same time as they're doing that, the government comes in here and says, well, we are now going to repeal the one measure that is on the books at the moment that has a chance of giving this country some revenue security. We hear the government say that there's a budget crisis. I think there's a crisis, there's a revenue crisis, because at the moment the amount of revenue that this government is raising is less than it has been under their fabled predecessor John Howard. So much so that if we started raising revenue as a proportion of GDP at the same level as we did under John Howard's government, we'd have between an extra $10 or $30 billion a year, and that means you don't have to cut schools. That means you don't have to cut hospitals. That means you don't have to say to people, you now have to pay to go and see the doctor. It means saying to young people, you don't have to spend 6 months of every year without any income at all. So increasingly, it is becoming clearer to the Australian population that we have a clear choice. You can have a budget and a set of legislation for the 1%, or you can have a budget for the 99%. And this government is doing what the people who paid for it to get elected wanted it, which is delivering for the 1%. It is coming in here saying we will repeal the mining tax, something that arch-Marxist Ken Henry, former Treasury Secretary, thought was a good idea. Why don't we take the opportunity to secure the benefits of a once-in-a-generation mining boom, to set this country up for a time when the rest of the world tells us to stop digging? And that time may come sometime soon. And there is every risk that if we agree with this debate management motion and then subsequently move to repeal the bills, that we're going to find ourselves waking up in 15 years' time to find this country is a hollowed-out, uneducated quarry. If we really want to address the revenue crisis in this country, and if we really want to say maybe we can ask those wealthy multinational mining companies that send 83% of their profits overseas, maybe they could pay a little bit more instead of sick people having to pay more to go and see the doctor. If we did that, we could find ourselves balancing this country's books and doing it in a much fairer way. But if we allow this motion to pass, we have lost the opportunity to fix and increase the mining tax. I hear those opposite before shouting out, oh, it doesn't raise any revenue. Well, you know that's not true. You know that's not true. It does raise revenue, but it doesn't raise anywhere nearly enough. And there are some problems with the mining tax that we have been pointing out for many times. The rebate for state royalties, the rate of the tax, the problems that allow write-downs by the mining companies, all of those things we pointed out at the time, the Greens did. And we said at the time, we are worried that this will not raise enough revenue. So if you think it's not raising enough revenue, let's fix it and increase it. If you really think, members of the government, that it's not raising enough revenue, then let's increase it. The only reason for repealing the mining tax is delivering for the likes of Gina Rinehart. And this government's got a clear choice. Do you want to deliver for the likes of Gina Rinehart, or do you want to deliver for the people? The Australian Greens know squarely where we stand, and we will be opposing this gag.